The story spread across Italy like a nightmare that wouldn't fade. In 1512, in the city of Ravenna, a place once known for its mosaics and saints, the people began whispering about something born that should never have existed. They said it came screaming into the world just as war consumed the land. The French army had invaded, and blood ran through the streets of Ravenna. In the same season, a midwife delivered a child that stopped her heart cold. Every account describes it differently, but the details all share the same horror. The child, they said, had the face of a man but the legs of a bird, scales down its body, a single horn on its head, a serpent for a tail. And to the people of the Renaissance, this wasn't a deformity. It was an omen. A pamphlet printed in Venice that year showed a woodcut of the creature, labelled simply, "The Monster of Ravenna." One chronicler wrote it had one breast like a woman, and in its belly the likeness of an eye. Another said it was a punishment sent for the sins of men, and especially the vanity of women. That's how the Renaissance world processed fear, through symbols and punishment. The monstrous birth was never just a medical event, it was a message from God. The Italian historian Francesco Guicciardini recorded the story in his History of Italy, writing that the monster appeared in Ravenna before the battle as a warning of the ruin to come. A few months later, that prophecy seemed fulfilled. In April 1512, the Battle of Ravenna became one of the bloodiest of the Italian wars. Thousands of soldiers were slaughtered, the French sacked the city, and the air filled with the stench of death. To the people who survived, the Monster of Ravenna wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny. The birth had predicted the massacre. It's easy to dismiss this as superstition, but in the 16th century, religion and science were still tangled together. Monstrous births were recorded, studied, even catalogued, but always through a moral lens. A malformed child meant something. It meant someone had sinned. A Jesuit writer named Ambroise Paré later collected dozens of similar cases in his 1573 book, Des Monstres et Prodiges, of monsters and wonders. He wrote, "Monsters are the work of God, showing his power and anger." Paré even included the Ravenna creature among his examples, describing its strange hybrid features in grim detail. Physicians, theologians, and artists all competed to interpret it. Was it divine wrath, a demon, a natural accident? Every new theory revealed more about their fears than their knowledge. One account claimed the monster's mother had been a nun seduced by a soldier. Another said she was a whore punished for lust. The story changed with every retelling, but the message stayed the same. Moral decay breeds horror. Renaissance Europe was obsessed with order, symmetry, beauty, the perfect human form. So when a child was born that violated that ideal, it shook their worldview. A single deformity could feel like the devil himself had signed his name on a newborn. Pamphlets of the monster circulated through Italy, France, even Germany. Some woodcuts exaggerated the features, a face split in two, wings instead of arms. But they always kept one key detail, the serpent tail. The serpent, the oldest symbol of evil. Even Martin Luther, the Reformation leader, mentioned the Monster of Ravenna in 1523, using it as proof that the Catholic Church had fallen into corruption. He wrote that the creature's twisted body represented the wickedness of Rome. What began as a rumor became a weapon in the religious wars that would soon engulf Europe. That's what made this story powerful. It wasn't just a curiosity, it became propaganda. A real child, maybe deformed by nature, turned into a symbol of divine vengeance and political chaos. Modern historians believe the story was based on a real birth, possibly a stillborn infant with severe congenital deformities. Others think the entire story was invented by pamphleteers, a kind of Renaissance tabloid meant to sell fear. But no one can deny how far it spread. or how much people believed. And that's what's chilling. Even as scholars studied anatomy and artists painted perfection, a single rumor could still make cities tremble. The Monster of Ravenna became the face of an anxious age, a reminder that beneath the gold leaf and humanist ideals, the Renaissance was still haunted by its own demons. Because behind every candlelit study, every cathedral and fresco, there was still the same primal fear that heaven and hell weren't somewhere else. They were right here, among us. The child was buried quietly, they say, in the countryside near Ravenna. No marker, no name, but its legend refused to die. For decades, people claimed to have seen visions of the monster walking by night, half human, half beast, a punishment that wouldn't rest. And as the 16th century turned toward the age of reason, the ghosts of faith didn't fade. They just changed form. In France, the dead themselves began to speak again. Noblemen claimed to see their murdered wives in the halls of their estates. Priests performed exorcisms in front of crowds. The Renaissance, so obsessed with beauty, had opened a door to the supernatural it could never close. And from those dark corridors came the next fear. Not witches, not monsters, but the return of the dead.